This is the Armchair Cricket Podcast.
Hello, all. Welcome to another episode of Armchair Cricket Podcast, a podcast focusing on Test cricket by armchair critics of the game. I'm your host, Ajit, and joining me to do a preview of the India versus Australia third test and discuss the other cricketing news is my co host, Giri. Hello, Giri. Welcome to the podcast.
Hello, Ajit. How are you doing? How is the lockdown treating you?
Well, it's all right. I'm sure it is all right. I do occasionally go out when I absolutely have to. Outside of that, the number of cases are not really reducing. So,
Mhm.
yeah, I'm hearing there may be more lockdown coming up in the upcoming days.
Yeah, which is quite sad because I think I thought um, we were improving
Hmm.
towards the end of summer, and then suddenly, I think uh, as soon as the winter started, things turned for the worse. Unfortunately, for all of us, especially in Western Europe. I think you see that so many countries are now extending lockdown.
Hmm.
Um, I think Germany has extended until the end of January. I think UK also extended until middle of February. That's quite hard, even hard.
Yeah, yeah,
And we have a lockdown in place until the 19th of January. But I think the general belief is it'll be extended for another couple of weeks uh,
indeed.
at best. I mean, it can go even worse. So we really don't know. But the good news is that the vaccination program has started in our country, in Netherlands.
Hmm.
So the first vaccine was carried out this morning, as you know. So there's more to come. So there is probably some light ready to appear at the end of the tunnel, so long as you're inside the tunnel, not outside. But anyway,
Indeed,
yeah. But
indeed.
we at least have a lot of cricket to look forward to, right? So let's get into it, I would say.
Indeed. Let's first of all go do a quick preview of the India Australia test that's hopefully going to begin in a couple of hours, Giri. So, this is the India Australia test that's going to happen at Sydney. And well, India have already released their squad, which is very interesting. So, basically, a couple of changes that we were expecting has happened. One, Rohit Sharma has been included in the 11 ahead of Mayank. And well, given that Umesh was injured and he was an out and out fast bowler, a like for like Navdeep Saini has taken his place. So, what are your thoughts on the squad?
Firstly, the SCG test. I think this will be a pink test, not with the pink ball,
Hmm.
but the pink theme,
Yes,
supporting that charity of Glenn McGrath, I believe. Um,
indeed.
so I think it's a special occasion. There will be crowd allowed. That's what I read inside the stadium. Although there have been some COVID outbreak in Australia.
Hmm.
Coming to the Indian squad, of course, I think Rohit was expected to be in the playing 11 as long as he was fit, and I think he's now fit enough to be there. He's a very crucial inclusion as an opener. So it's interesting because they've chosen to drop Mayank Agarwal. Mayank had a very middling test series so far. I think the first couple of matches he didn't score a lot of runs. There must have been one innings where he played 30 odd runs, right? So apart from that, he didn't look the part. So if Prithvi Shaw can be dropped, so can Mayank. And I think Shubman Gill is basically cemented his place at least for the next test. So after this, so Rohit's comes back to the squad. He brings with him a lot of experience and that calmness again, just like Rahane, also a captain, right? So he captains the IPL squad. So that which is a very good inclusion. So I have to, yeah, I mean, I'm pretty happy with that. Um, there was this, I think Natarajan was included in the squad, not in the playing 11, but in the squad, replacing Yadav because I think Natarajan and Saini were both net bowlers, along with Kartik Tyagi, right? So two of them have made it to the squad now. Shami is of course out, right? So there was Siraj. Now there is a new debutant, Saini. And as you said, he's a like for like replacement, Umesh Yadav. of old. I have to say Umesh Yadav doesn't have that kind of pace anymore. But Saini is easily 150 plus when he wants it. Um, yeah, but I don't know if you can bring the consistency. Umesh has struggled in the past. Saini does, bring that pace, but I don't know if. I mean, it's going to be interesting. If he has a debut like Siraj, I would be very happy with that inclusion. But I'm a bit circumspect, to be honest.
Hmm. Look, small correction there. Shardul, Tyagi, and Natarajan were the net bowlers.
Saini was not.
But no, Saini was always in the squad
Okay,
actually.
good to know.
So he's, let's say, the next cab of the rank, right? So he's been like touring with the India A team last 18 months or so. He's done his, let's say, due diligence there. He's played 14 matches for India A. I mean, his returns are not spectacular, but then that's the whole point. On a day when he clicks, he can give you maybe an innings, if not an entire test match. So that's the X factor he brings. And probably since he's been working and training with this team, the, let's say, the expected standards to play test matches, I think he's already there fitness wise.
Hmm.
So for me, it's a very exciting debut, frankly, and it can go anyway, right? As you correctly said, on his day he can be good, but I understand why you're being circumspect, but I think the Indian team management also thought if he can have a debut like how Siraj has. I mean, Siraj is able to graduate to the next level, at least on one test. But the real challenge comes here because you have only one experienced fast bowler, Jasprit Bumrah. And, of course, Sydney is a bit of a spinner friendly pitch, but they really come into their own in the second and third day onwards, the spinners, right?
Hmm.
So the first 1.5 to 2 days, it will still have to be your faster bowlers. So it remains to be seen, really. I mean, how successful India will continue to be
Hmm.
in spite of all of these injuries. I mean, speaking of injuries, you also heard, I'm sure, that Rahul is injured and out of the squad.
Hmm. Which is also quite sad. I think I sort of expected him to play a part at some point in this test series should one of the other openers fail again. But I
Hmm.
think it's unfortunate that he's now out. But he had a good limited over series, so they can now go back and put his feet up and relax a bit, I guess.
I mean, I'm sure he would be more eager to stay back and
Yeah,
contribute.
yeah.
I wouldn't completely rule out including him in the middle order, right?
Mm.
If, let's
Mm.
say, Hanuma
Yeah.
Vihari continues with some less than anticipated returns, Rahul could have also featured in the middle order, but
Mm.
this remains to be seen, really. It's now out of the question. Unfortunately, he's out.
Mm.
Whether India will remain with the same squad or whether they'll have a replacement named for him, we'll have to see. I'm sure they have some fast bowling backup. But I mean, the main talking point will be whether India will continue to be successful with the way they've tied up the Australian top order, right? I mean, we've spoken about India. I guess the spinners will be the main weapons, along with maybe Jasprit Bumrah and a bit of help from the newbies. But when it comes to Australia, so what do you think? Because they've withdrawn Joe Burns from the squad.
Mm.
Warner has been added. Sean Abbott is there, and of course Will Pukowski, who's cleared all the concussion protocol related things. He's available as well. What do you think Australian squad will be like?
I think Warner is coming back into the squad, no matter what. Uh, I know that he had what sort of an injury did he have? Was that groin?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I know he's fond of running quick singles and all that, but now I think they will probably ask him to score briskly, but without scoring a lot of quick runs. I mean, quick singles and twos, of course. So, but he will be back. I think his presence is or his absence was clearly felt in that squad, and it also sort of makes it much easier for Matthew Wade to express himself in the middle order. Um,
Hmm.
I think that will be a welcome change for him with the kind of mindset, with the kind of counter-attacking mindset that he has. He will be better served if he plays in the middle order or lower middle order. So Joe
Hmm.
Burns, it's unfortunate, but yeah, I think his somebody had to go, and it was Joe Burns. And is Travis Head still in the squad, or is he dropped as well?
No, Travis Head is there in the squad. I
Okay.
mean, I even expect he will start, but you could be right in as much that if they choose to include Will Pukowski,
Hmm.
right, it might very well be that Will Pukowski could be opening with Warner,
Yeah,
right?
that's what I
That
think.
will
Hmm.
mean, indeed. So that will mean Head is out as well, and you'll have Wade. probably fitting in at five
Yeah.
ahead of Tim Payne, probably, right? Or even six, let's say, because yeah, at least I don't expect them to touch their three, four, because
Yeah.
that's yeah, Labushkagne and Smith, who will, I mean, look, they have not come good so far.
Yeah.
Labushkagne looking, increasingly like he's going to score a big knock. And Smith is the only one. I mean, so far they've tied him down, the Indians, with their, sort of leg trap, it must be called, for the spinners, right?
Yeah.
But I mean, it's this is the day, I think, because look, the Test match series is very tantalizingly poised, 1-1,
Mm.
right? I mean, we have had like two chapters already of this very wonderful, let's say, series. But then I think here comes the real tenacity and the real staying power. Both the teams have to show that. Indians are hit with a lot of injuries, so have been Australians, frankly speaking. But their, let's say, their number one bowling attack that they wanted on paper is still available to them. That's an advantage. But their top order is still misfiring. So,
Yeah.
do you think inclusion of Warner can correct this? The energy he provides at the beginning of the innings.
Of course, I think with his experience and his, him being part of the erstwhile leadership group, right? That his presence, I think, as I said earlier, is very important, quite essential for the team to have that sort of, the fighting edge, if I can say so. Without him, I think the Australian team, if the players, if you look at them, they are not so, if I can say so, loudmouthed, right? I think that is missing in that squad. He has that fire. Is all very cheerful and very friendly banter. I think with Warner it can change. Um, but yeah, I mean, coming back to the bowling lineup, I think those bowlers, they are the four bowlers that they have. Yeah, I think they're pretty much one of the best lineups in Test cricket at the moment. And that kind of bowlers actually win your matches. So they can defend a score, even a low score. But the batting has been a problem, and Smith will come back. I think it's his home ground, SCG, right? So he will
Hmm.
have a part to play, and he knows the conditions, and he'll be happy to come out of that. The lack of form that he's in right now. He's not. He will start coming back to his best, I would say. And Labush Kagne, I think, as long as he Labush Kagne famously talks to himself a lot out in the middle. So if he lets the bat talk a bit more, I think he will score more runs.
Hmm. Well, I mean, there is one other thing here, right? So, as well as Cam Green has played and showed that he belongs in the last inning specifically,
Hmm.
Travis Head is also a part time, or more than a usual part time off spinner,
Yeah.
right? If you look at the Australian squad, there is no other spinner in the squad
Hmm.
except Nathan Lyon. So, you have these fast bowlers, three fast bowlers in Nathan Lyon who will definitely start.
Yeah.
You have Marnus Labuschagne who can bowl a bit of leg
What
spin,
about Steve Smith? He was a
Steve Smith
spinner
as
who
well.
could bat, now, right, when he started.
Well, yes, yes, yes. I mean, I'm not correct there. I think Mitchell Swepson, the leg break bowler, is also in the squad. Look, this is the other question for me. Would Cameron Green still be in the 11, or would you think, because it's Sydney, it's traditionally more spin friendly, right? And India have two spinners in their 11. So, would Australia also replicate this? Three fast bowlers, two spinners, maybe um, either Travis Head retain his position ahead of Cam Green, or maybe you'll have Mitchell Swepson, who's a leg break bowler, stepping in there.
I think Mitchell Swepson will not play, to be honest. They will go with Travis Head, if at all. They need a spinner who can bat. That will be, or a batsman who can bowl a bit of spin. It will be Travis Head. Otherwise, they will stick with Cam Green. Cameron Green has shown enough promise. I think they will stick with him, to be
Hmm.
honest. I think he will play with Labushkagne and Smith, if required, bowling the odd over here and there. Otherwise, I don't see any changes there.
So, okay. So I'm going to go for Travis Head retaining his place ahead of Cameron Green. A bit
Okay.
harsh on the youngster, but he can bowl spin. So they'll have already three fast bowlers in the
Mm-hmm.
11. So the more, let's say, options you give yourself
Mm-hmm.
with part time or some semi part time spinners, the better, I would say.
But
You
Travis
you were
Head
thinking
has
of something?
no. I
Uh
was
huh.
going to say Travis Head hasn't been so good with the bat. He has had those starts, but he has not converted them. And somebody who
Hmm.
is doing his debut has a better temperament than a guy who is a bit more experienced, like Travis said. So Cam Green has had better temperament in the last match that he plays, especially, right? So,
Hmm.
so
Hmm.
that's the only thing I have against Travis said. Otherwise, he can start. But I still think Cam Green will play.
All right, that covers the squads. And I mean, there's not a lot of rain or anything predicted, so we expect this test to go the distance really.
Hmm.
So, considering all this, the tough question, Giri, what is your prediction?
It's a very tricky one.
Mm-hmm.
I think India are going to miss the experience of Umesh Yadav. I think their bowling is a bit fragile. Although they have those two spinners, they just have one strike bowler, Bumrah. I still don't consider Siraj to be there sharing the attack with Bumrah yet. I think he needs to grow up a bit more in terms of Test cricket. So India are a bit bowling light and batting heavy. Just like it's sort of the reverse of what we had in the previous test. I was saying bowling heavy and batting light in the previous match. This time because of Rohit, they have a bit more strength in the batting lineup. So I'm going to say it's going to be a tough one. I think Australia will win this one, but it will be 4 innings. It will not be like innings defeat or something. They will play for all 4 innings. It will be a close
Hmm.
one. You?
Okay. Well, I find it tough to predict, frankly, because it'll depend on the first day's play. So if Australia win the toss, bat, and let's say put up 280 for 3-4, that's when the Indian bowling will be really, really exposed.
Mm,
And so I will say, if Australia win the toss, they have a very good chance of actually winning the game.
mm,
If India win the toss, I would say they give themselves a chance of winning this one. It's going to be tough. It's going to be very tough for India. Also, in the whether be it the second or the third innings, those long spells that you require from faster bowlers later on, you'll have your spinners plugging away for sure. But you'll need these incisive bursts. Let's say not
yeah.
long spells. Those will be the tough ones. So really, how the Indian fast bowlers shape up will really tell me the narration or the narrative of how this game will go as far as India are concerned. I'm
Mm,
going to say it's going to be tied with the toss. If
yeah.
India win the toss, they give themselves a chance to, win this game. But if Australia win the toss, it might all go pear shaped for India. So yeah, that's my
So it's all
prediction.
it's all down to toss then.
Yeah, that's how I
Unfortunately.
think about it.
No,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
But it's too close to call. That's what I also agree with. But I only think that Australia will have a slight edge. They have a better balanced bowling lineup than India's.
Yep,
So bowlers win your matches,
indeed.
not the batsmen.
Well, okay, I
Come on.
agree. So in this case, well, that was our, let's say, a preview of the test, and let's see how it goes.
Yeah.
Right. So now moving on, if you were to take a look at the other two tests that have gone on in the interim. So one is the Sri Lanka versus South Africa test, a bit one-sided really. The entire series was a bit one-sided, but I mean, it was a case of diminishing returns as far as Sri Lankan batting went, right? So in the second test played in Joburg, again, quick pitch, tough pitch to bat on, and they began again very brightly at two for 70, or even two for 71, one for 70. It must be said. They looked to have conquered the, let's say, the tough conditions first morning. All they had to do was last through the day, maybe put up 300, 350. They would have given themselves a very good chance because their bowlers are doing the job, right? But they couldn't. They were all out for 157 on the first day already. And by the end of the first day, really, South Africa had almost clawed their way back because at 152 for one at the end of first day, or 148 for one, it was very tough to see Sri Lanka coming back because when it comes to bowling, Heinrich Norke took a 6 4 in the first innings. Lungi Ngidi took a 5 4 in the second. Their bowling was working very good, and Vian Mulder, the all rounder that they want, to grow into a very matured player and really help out with the balance that they always seek, did really well in the first innings, taking 3 for 25. All of his wickets came in the first session. So he took out the top order of Sri Lanka with those wobbly seamers that, let's say, somebody like Sean Pollock and Vernon Philander would have been proud of. And that's a very good, encouraging sign as far as they are concerned. And Lutho Sipamla, who was debuting, really bowled well. He showed a lot of heart. He's at least debuting in the series, it must be said. And then when South Africa batted, they themselves did not show the relevant application. So from 2 for 218, they were 302 all out. Again, 84 for 8 or 84 for 9. That's not a nice collapse, right? But they had Dean Elgar, who scored 100, and then Rasif Anderdusen with 67 from number 3 did enough. So when you have your opposition all out for 157, if you cross 300, you've got a big enough lead to win the game. That's really what happened. Sri Lanka fought back. Sri Lanka fought back really well because their bowlers did not really give up. I mean, this could have been 400, 450, and that's that. But really, their bowlers came back. They restricted the opposition to 300. Vishwa Fernando taking a 5 for. It was, after all, a bowling-friendly pitch. Let's not forget that. Demut Karunaratne scored 100. We were expecting he'll score more runs in the series, really. The captain leading from the front. They don't have a very experienced lineup after Chandimal was injured out, right? But in the second innings, he came good. He hit 100. And Lahiru Thirumanna scored 31. They were looking really good again. 2 for 92. Even 1 for 85. They looked really good. But from that point on, it was all again downhill. Only Niroshan Dikwala scored 36, but then 211 all out, giving South Africa a small target, 67, which they scored without any loss. So Dean Elgar was correctly named the man of the series. His very good contributions right through the Test series. So a bit of a one-sided series, it must be said. I think South Africa were really, really eager to make sure they paid Sri Lanka back in the same currency that they had received previously. Giri.
Yeah, this was sort of expected. I think I told you during Christmas period. I think wasn't that the first match, Boxing Day Test match, when we were doing the predictions. I
Mm-hmm.
said this is going to be a very easy series for South Africa. Although I must admit, Sri Lanka did show some character in this match, especially with the second innings batting led by the captain. But I think the injuries basically made it so much difficult for them. So many injuries, right? So they lost Dhananjaya De Silva. I think he was a key player who played so well in the
Yep.
first match. That him and Chandimal were batting so well. I think I mentioned that this also in our previous episode. When De Silva got injured, South Africa gained an upper hand. Basically, they started making inroads in that match. Otherwise, Sri Lanka were very comfortably placed. So that sort of was the turning point in my opinion. And then after that, I think even Chandimal is injured, right? And Angelo Matthews is always an injury worry, so he's not there in the. He was not there. But yeah, with
Mm-hmm.
the England series coming up in the winter, so we have to see. I think England are already in Sri Lanka. They're waiting. So when Sri Lanka come back, maybe they've had a bit of test match practice, so they are a bit more conditioned to play longer the longer format of the game. Um, so hopefully with those guys coming back and in home conditions, they will do well against England. So at least that's what I hope. And England have a task on their hands. I mean, I think Jimmy Anderson is playing this in the upcoming series, so it's going to be interesting. This could be his swan song. At the same time, he will be tested
Mm-hmm.
in uh, away from home conditions. So Sri Lanka will do well to defend their home territory, but they did lose last time against England. England won, right? So let's see what happens.
Right.
Sri Lanka have, yeah, they have to.
Well, I mean,
Yeah, go ahead.
because you brought this up, well, England have been hit with one unexpected, let's say, infection right at the beginning. Moeen Ali has tested positive for corona after landing, so he's had to isolate himself.
Hmm.
That will not be good news because, along with the Jack Leach, it was Moeen Ali who bowled so well that they were both the joint top wicket takers
Yeah.
when England beat Sri Lanka, right? So it's an unfortunate news, but I'm sure, I mean, they have backup, but I think they'll miss his. Let's say his services. He's going to definitely miss the first test by the looks of it. So, right.
Hmm.
I mean, we'll see how it really shapes up. Sri Lanka will be eager to also get some wins under their belt, right? After all, they're still a part of the World Test Championship. So,
Yeah.
right. I mean, the other Test match we can take a quick look at is this magnificent beast of a machine called the New Zealand Test team playing at home. Right.
Yeah.
They're doing really, really well. So they beat Pakistan by an innings and 176 runs. Look, again, another similar sort of a story. Two tests where there was a lot of fight from the visiting team in the first test, and then slowly it became a diminishing returns because Pakistan showed such a lot of fight. They nearly drew the first game. They were all out with what 6 overs remaining hardly. So that was a fantastic test match. This was more along predicted lines, unfortunately, because well, batting first, Pakistan could only make 297 in spite of some very solid contributions because up until about midday they looked really strong on the first day, but then the collapse started, and then from 4 for, let's say, 170 to about 297 all out. So Mohammad Rizwan 61, Fahim Ashraf 48, Zafar Khohar 34. Middle order sort of did their bit. Azhar Ali top of the order 93. Openers failed. Shan Masood had a very bad tour. It must be said, a complete failure of a tour for him. I think he bagged a pair in this test. And then their middle order failed. And that meant, they couldn't really capitalize. Kyle Jamieson took a 5 for, he took 11 for in the game, and we'll talk about how well he started shortly. But, overall, they contributed well. They also had lost Wagner, their, let's say, workhorse. Matt Henry replaced him, did a good job. And you have, of course, Saudi and Bolt right at the top. And of course, there was Mitchell Santler, who got the Thanks for Coming award for sure. Well, no, I'm
Just like
wrong.
Keshav
Exactly.
Maharaj. Yeah.
Exactly. No. Keshav Maharaj got the Thanks for Coming award. In this case, they did the right thing and they dropped Mitchell Santner. In spite of him playing a match-winning role in the previous test, he had to sit out, and they had an all-fast bowling attack, which was what was needed. Because when they got to bat, look, they were going to bat once. They had this guy called Williamson, who apparently has discovered how to bat all of a sudden, right? You can give him a wicket, just a stump. He'll just keep batting for another 2 days with that, right?
Yeah.
He scored another 200, 238, his second double hundred of the home summer, right? And then, they had a decent start, but then Kane Williamson just stood one end. And then Henry Nichols, who sort of limped his way to 100 and then continued to bat, he just kept batting. This was very, very inexplicable the way Pakistan bowled. Some of the bowling did not look really well calculated or well thought out, because I think some of their fast bowlers went for a lot of runs. Naseem Shah, 26 overs, 5.42 runs an over. To counterbalance him, you had Shaheen Shah Afridi, Mohammad Abbas both going under 3 an over, but they had a lot of runs leaked. Their spinner went at almost 5 an over. It was a big problem for them. And as a result, scoring at more than 4 an over, New Zealand declared it 659 for 6 with Daryl Mitchell, who's a poor man's Colin de Grant home, so to say. Again, coming good, hitting 100, right? And Kyle Jamieson showing his all-round credentials, hitting a 30 not out. So with enough of a lead, in spite of scoring 300, Pakistan could not really contain New Zealand. And with enough of a lead, this was the last innings of the tour. It was going to be tough. We knew it. Shan Masood again hit a duck. Abid Ali made a couple of fighting 20s, it must be said. He took time out of the game in both cases. But that's not enough. You need your opener to go on, right? But Abid Ali, it would be a very, very good learning experience for him, no doubt. Mohammad Abbas promoted to night watchman, did his bit, must be said. But then Azhar Ali 37, and then a little bit in the middle order. Fahim Ashraf 28, Zafar Gohar 37. Zafar Gohar had a decent debut, it must be said. He, at least with the bat, he scored a couple of 30s, but then with the ball, he was not all that good. And again, a learning experience. But you had Kyle Jamieson taking a 6 for, finishing with 11 wickets in the game, finishing the man of the match. But the man of the series was, of course, Kane Williamson. I guess not a lot to argue on. And then, I'll go through the stats of this series, but what are your thoughts on this game and the series, Kire?
You're talking about a learning experience. What I've learned from this is it's not worth staying up all night watching such a one-sided match. And thankfully, I didn't
Right.
do that. So I'm so happy I didn't stay up late to watch this. But anyway, I think it was a very tough series for a visiting team, and New Zealand have made it their fortress right now. And I think they now are the number one ranked Test team, along with Kane Williamson, the number one Test batsman. Right, so
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
he is basically leapfrogged Kohli and Smith, right? So fantastic.
Yep.
And I'm lost. I have no words to describe what a genuinely good batsman this guy is, Kane Williamson. And he's been scoring runs like crazy, even since the IPL. So yeah, I don't know what to say. I think you were saying. I think I remember there was a tweet from somebody. He was presented with a bat in the form of a
Mm-hmm.
guitar, or a guitar with
Yeah.
which looked like a bat. And I think you said in the tweet he might as well score another double hundred with that bat or with that guitar, right?
Hmm.
I think in the end New Zealand were too good, so they should stop playing Test series in New Zealand. Honestly, it's a disgrace. The visiting teams. I'm not saying it's a disgrace as such, but the visiting team should be better prepared, and they should show a bit more fight than this. Otherwise, it's going to be too many one-sided games like this. It's going to kill Test cricket.
No, this was again the format India suffered. They lost 2-0.
Yeah, exactly.
Pakistan have lost 2-0. West Indies have lost 2-0. Why I'm saying this is 17 consecutive unbeaten tests at home for New Zealand,
Yeah,
right? And they won 13 of those 17. So it was not
yeah,
like they just hung on to draws or something.
yeah,
All
and
comfortable series wins.
yeah, and the only one I can think of where there was some sort of a fight was that Sri Lanka against New Zealand, where Angelo Matthews and Kusal Mendis basically saved the match by batting
Indeed,
long, right?
indeed.
So that was the only memorable one,
Well,
memorable
that
sort of a match where a visiting team had some sort of an upper hand. But yeah, otherwise it's you can forget about them all.
well, I mean, also, I mean, the way Kyle Jamieson has begun, right?
Yeah,
Five match hauls. So a lot of lot of wickets. He's taken 36 wickets in his first six tests. He's in the top five ever, right?
yeah.
Vernon Filter was also there. Vernon Philander was there, but he's also there now. It's like a phenomenal start as far as
But
Test match career is
where were
concerned.
those six test matches played? Home or away? How many of
I
them were?
think I think they all might have been at home.
Yeah, let's see what happens when he comes out.
Mm-hmm. Now he has the pace and the bounce. I mean, he'll definitely enjoy the Sena countries, as they're called. One of them is his own home. What happens when he goes to the Asian subcontinent will be very interesting to see, and probably Dubai, right?
Yeah.
But I mean, look, what we have seen is Vernon Philander began really well. He ended equally well. I mean, even at the fag end of his career, Vernon Philander had an average of, I think, 23 or something. So that's fantastic over a career of, I don't know, 200 wickets. That's well done. So given what he's capable of, he can also bat. He's also shown he can bat. So this is a very useful all-round player New Zealand have discovered as far as Test match cricket is concerned,
Mm.
right? And he's very tall, very strong. He looks more like a rugby centre half, really. But okay, that's something else. And yeah, I mean, all of these records and well, New Zealand are deservedly they're nice guys. This is the thing that
Yeah,
pisses me off, right?
that's true.
They're nice guys.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, sure,
So
they deserve it.
at least for that, you want to go and play there because they treat you so well, and then they smack you so hard that you won't even know that you have lost.
I mean, after that 200, it didn't look like he had scored a second double hundred. No shouting, screaming, jumping, nothing. He kept his bat in the crease and he quietly went back, gave a handshake to his partner, raised his bat to the crowd absentmindedly. This guy, Kane Williamson. I mean, I think the less said about him, the better. Such a nice guy and such a great ambassador for the game overall, not just his own country, I'm sure.
Yeah,
Right?
absolutely.
I mean, I remember reading how New Zealand won 2020, the way they handled the crisis and their leader.
Mm.
And this guy is no less the way, I mean, he's been leading this team. So kudos to him. But okay, let's move on. Let's take a look at some of these interesting news about, COVID-19. So first thing I would like to discuss is, well, the impact of COVID-19 on the ongoing India-Australia tests. So, well, there was this news that came out, Giri, that five India players, two of whom will actually be in the 11, were actually caught breaching the protocol when they probably interacted closely with a fan at a restaurant, Giri.
I don't know the full details, but apparently the fan paid their bill without them knowing about it, and then Rohit Sharma got to know about it, and they said, "No, you can't do that. Take your money back,"
Hmm.
and all that. And then there was some sort of a promise that there would be a photo or a handshake or a hug. I don't remember everything. And then there was a tweet saying I was able to hug Rishabh Pant or something like that. The fan said that, and then he retracted those comments. He said, "No, no, we observed protocols. I didn't. There was nothing like a hug or anything. We were stayed away from each other and all that." But it was probably too late. And then the team management came to know about it, right? So there could be a because of all these bubbles and stuff. So it's very sensitive right now. So you can't mingle with people outside of your team, right? So it's weird. And then they were all tested, and the test came back negative. So they're still okay to play, I guess. All these players and five.
Hmm.
You said five players. I think four of them are in the playing 11. If I look at it, Rohit Sharma, Rishabh Pant, Shubman Gill, and
Oh,
Navdeep
yeah.
Saini. So only Prithvi Shah is Prithvi Shah was the one who didn't who is not part of the playing 11 right now tomorrow.
All right.
Yeah.
I mean, you're right. So, I mean, that was not the cleverest thing. Look, you're enjoying a lot more freedom by being in Australia, which has relatively less number of cases, right? So you're able to dine out. I mean, it was not the cleverest thing from the fans' perspective. It was not the cleverest thing from the players' perspective. I think there were some posts on Instagram which were later deleted, but the damage was already done. You're
Yeah.
right. But luckily, there was no long-term damage as far as the tour prospects, as also as far as individual players' health. That was really lucky. They got away with it there. And also, you're saying of the bubble that they've lived in and the frustration and this how the bubble grinds you down. What is this we read that maybe there may be some boycott related things if the test were to be played in Brisbane because of
Mm.
the hard lockdown rules there in Queensland? Yeah.
Apparently, yeah, I don't know. I mean, apparently in Brisbane, you need to have such a strong bubble that you're not even allowed to come out of your room and play meet other players in the lobby and stuff like that. This was the rule. That's what I
Hmm.
read somewhere.
Hmm. Hmm.
And this is too harsh. I think you if you can't meet your own teammates inside the hotel, in a confined environment where everything is safe, it's a bit of a stretch, I would say. And I think some players were not happy about this, Indian players. So they said, we're not happy with this, we're not going to go with this and all that. And then BCCI um, showed its muzzle, and then people are talking about a boycott now. I don't think there'll be a boycott. There will be some amendments made to the arrangements, I would say, as long as everything is safe. But it's very strange. I think Australia has been able to contain the infection rate due to these drastic measures. And for people, who've been away from home, you've consider this. These Indian players who were also part of the IPL that happened in Dubai and Abu Dhabi and Sharjah, of course. They have been away for how long now? I think the IPL was played in November, so they were out of their homes or respective
Hmm.
homes
Hmm.
probably by end of October or something, and they can't even mingle with each other outside of the cricket ground or in a hotel. It's hard enough being away from family, so I think it's quite tough on them. So we have to understand these are all humans. Although Team Payne has said they are happy, the Australian team are happy to play under whatever conditions, but he was not part of the IPL. He's been away. He's been at home in home conditions for quite some time. So I think a lot of people don't understand his perspective. But yeah, so we'll see what happens. I think they will be the test will be played at Brisbane, but we'll see what happens with the measures. They will probably relax some of them. What do you think?
Well, I mean, I agree with you. It's been very grinding as far as the players are concerned with staying in the bubble, and eventually, it's also going to start telling on your performances on the field, which is unfortunate.
Hmm.
But look, I mean, they're professionals. They know what they're in for. At least Rohit Sharma was lucky. He got a break in between. The rest of the squad really traveled from one point to the other. But I think they can get away with, being in the lockdown another two
Hmm.
weeks, right? All it requires is this 2 week period. Nathan Lyon was one of the players who also said, suck it and just play. Makes sense.
Of course, he will say that. He's the
I
goat.
mean, he's the goat, and the goat stayed at home, right, all
Yeah,
through his winter.
yeah.
But right, but for now, I mean, I agree that no matter the financial repercussions and the muzzle that whatever Indian board can wield, I think there should be a test in Brisbane. Look, at the end of the day, Brisbane is also it's called Gabbatoir, right?
Hmm.
Because Australia have not lost there since '88. I
Hmm.
mean, all of this could be political machinations to try to get a test away from there, right?
Yeah.
Maybe give Sydney another test if India are especially successful at Sydney.
Or maybe
Who knows,
MCG.
right? Or MCG. So I mean, there are other things there, but I think sanity will prevail at the end. The tour, as it was announced, will be played out, and let's see. Let's keep
Yeah.
an eye on this
But if
in
you
the
do, if
upcoming.
India do win in SCG, they will retain the
Mhm.
Border Gavaskar Trophy. So they need to
Oh
win.
yeah, let's hope so. I mean, in a couple of hours, we'll know when the toss goes up. At
Yeah,
least
the
that's
toss
my
will decide
thoughts.
indeed. Yeah.
Hmm.
Go ahead.
Right. Now, going on with some of the other corona related news. So, Zimbabwe has suspended all cricketing activities because the number of COVID 19 cases have suddenly gone on the rise there, and they're going into a hard lockdown themselves. So, no more cricket there, which is very unfortunate but understandable, even in spite of all the other conditions, financial impact, and other things. The other thing, well, I mean, in Pakistan, Sana Mir, the Pakistan women's cricketer, she was commentating in the Qaeda-Azam finals, and she tested positive at the end of a commentary stint, and well, PCB went into a bit of a meltdown. Unfortunately, this is a very serious issue. The PTV crew and all the players had to be tested before they could go back into play, and it became a bit of a small, a bit of a disaster management. Really, they did well there, I would say. And in spite of all these scares, the Qaeda-Azam final was played out, and it became a tie, Giri. I don't know if you had a chance to look at the scorecard, or maybe you followed the game.
Unfortunately, not. I was not on top of this. Sorry.
Well, I mean, it looks like it is a very evenly contested game, which ended in a tie. I mean, at the end of first innings, Khyber Pakhtunkhwa had a little bit of a lead, but really they gave a very stiff target to Central Punjab. The last innings target was the highest score of the four innings, and I mean it looked like Central Punjab were dead and buried, right? So um, at 248 for 9 chasing to 355, you could consider the match is done. But then you had the captain of Central Punjab, Hassan Ali, still at the crease, and he had different ideas. So he went on to make a maiden 100 in first class matches of just 61 balls. And after they had tied the scores, his partner Waqas Masood got out. So the game ended in a tie. This means the two teams shared the trophy. I think this is the first time that indeed there's been a tie in the finals of any first class tournament, right? So that means the team sharing the trophy because of a tie. There have been sharing because of games that have finished as a draw, or because there have been climate impacted games and so on. So this is the first time such a thing has happened. So it's great to read if you're a first class cricket fan or a test match fan. So that was great, and also the way PCB handled that potential fiasco of a positive test was also good to read. I mean, now if you were to move on, some other news from off the cricketing field, right? So we hear this, let's say, the offshoot of Black Lives Matter movement that's going on in England, and especially in the sporting arena, where many people have spoken up about the alleged racial discrimination. So John Holder, who was a long-term umpire, has actually decided to sue ECB over alleged racial discrimination during his time. He's been an international umpire. He's been a county umpire. Yeah, and he has another colleague of his, Ismail Dawood, who both felt they were not correctly treated. They faced years of racism, they say. So it's going to be interesting because it's going to be followed up by an independent inquiry. I mean, all of these are good things, these sort of reckonings that happen from time to time. I remember Mr. John Holder fondly because he usually shows up on Test Match Special. There's a Ask the Umpire section, which is, I think, usually in the second test midday when of the second test. Usually, they have this Ask the Umpire where people send in weird queries whether this is out, what would be a ruling in such a situation, and he's the specialist that shows up and actually answers these questions. So it's unfortunate to hear that he's undergone these certain discrimination he feels during his time. So it remains to be seen how this is going to finish this episode. Moving on, well, another blow to the Indian women's cricket, let's say, itinerary, because their proposed tour of Australia, which was supposed to start this month, has been postponed to the following season. So really, Indian women have been without cricket since March, except for the 4 games that they played in the Women's T20 Challenge, Giri. I'm a bit disappointed, really, because look, the Indians men's team is able to travel, right? And they are playing in the same country. And this country is one of the relatively less affected countries when it comes to COVID. And I don't know what was really the problem here, because it is understood BCCI wasn't keen. I mean, I don't understand, because it was previously planned as a lead up to the 2021 World Cup from Feb. That got postponed. But look, I mean, and of course, Australian cricket has all the correct steps because they have recently hosted a WBBL. They have grounds and everything available. The Indian women's cricketers would be, I think, very desperate to go and play. I don't know what happened here. I'm very disappointed, must be said, from BCCI's action here. But we really hope this doesn't impact the Indian women's cricket. I'm really worried about Indian women's cricket, seeing what I'm getting to read and how these tours are postponed. Uh, at least must be said, the Pakistan women's team is currently touring South Africa, and it must be said at least PCB has taken these positive steps. So that's well done to them again. The Afghanistan Ireland series that has been planned to be held in UAE will be going ahead, right? So this is a very good thing because there were no visas available due to COVID related reasons from Afghanistan players, but then UAE finally decided to clear them. So that means they're able to go ahead and play. So the fixtures are supposed to happen on January 18th, 21st, and 23rd. This is a 3-match ODI series. So this is a very, very good thing. ಈ ಮೈಕ್ ಅಷ್ಟೇ ಅನ್ಸುತ್ತೆ 1 hour ಅಷ್ಟೇ ಅದಾದ್ಮೇಲೆ ಡಮ್ ಆಗ್ಬಿಡುತ್ತೆ. Okay.
Our thing, go ahead. Start.
Well, let's take a quick look at the the trivia section, Giri. So the trivia question from the previous episode was which former England cricketer was actually born in Shimla, by the way, when he was included in the test squad, meant that a test series in West Indies got abandoned, Giri. Would you like to give us the answer?
It's Jackers, as he was fondly known, Robin Jackman, who also unfortunately passed away end of last year. So Christmas Day, in fact. So very unfortunate. So this guy was apparently born in India. I didn't know that. It comes as a surprise to me. And he represented England, of course, but he spent a lot of time in South Africa. I think he even passed away in South Africa. He played domestic cricket in South Africa, and I think he also coached a couple of teams there. So he was a very popular voice in the commentary box. I think he also had a long commentating career. He was even part of the IPL commentary team. I remember he was wearing those funny, not funny, but traditional Indian dress during one of the IPL seasons. I still remember.
All right. Moving on to the trivia question from this episode. The question is, which two umpires achieved a hat-trick of officiating in 3 consecutive ODI World Cup finals?
Do you want me to lift 1 foot off the ground, Ajit, in honor of them?
Well, might be a good idea, Giri. So if you know the answer to this question, or if you'd like to make an attempt, right, do write into us at armchaircrickpod on Twitter or armchair.cricket@gmail.com. Also, if you'd like to share any thoughts about how we are doing, I think do let us know. We would be very happy to hear from you. We've seen a small upswing in the, let's say, the number of downloads in the previous episodes. So we would like to thank our fans for this. We hope you continue to encourage us in the same manner. So having said all that, it's a goodbye from me.
And it's a goodbye from him. Bye-bye.
This is the Armchair Cricket Podcast. Sit back and enjoy.